Hey everyone, welcome to the Coach Catalyst podcast. This show is about helping you grow as a coach by standing on the shoulders of giants. Each show, you get a different mentor in your ear. The early motivations, the successes, the failures, the tools, the tricks, and the insight into where the industry is going. All of it so you can make your own dent in the world. Remember, success leaves clues. Now, without further ado, on to the show.
Guten Morgen, my friend, and welcome to the Coach Catalyst podcast. I'm your host, Trevor Whitwer. On today's episode, I have the pleasure of speaking with the queen of men's health, Ali Gilbert. This was a great episode, not only because the content was great, but Ali is so fun to speak to, and she's so animated, and she's just a great guest. I met Ali at Aram's event in Las Vegas called the Real Coaches Summit. Definitely check that one out next year. Phenomenal event. But Ali is the queen of men's health, and she's built a juggernaut of an online business, but she spent most of her time in the offline world, the last 18, 19 years, and it's only because of COVID that she transitioned to online. And she didn't always dream about being in men's health. She basically leaned into a market that she was getting traction in and has built this incredible business. So as you can expect, we talk about the differences between offline and online, how to structure your day in the online world to be effective, some of the pitfalls that she had early on, and then how she would coach someone that wants to get into the online, into the online business or the online world. So if you're an online coach, this is going to help you definitely level up. If you're an offline coach looking to transition online, this episode is going to give you a lot of nuggets on how to do that. Either way, I know you're going to love this episode with the one and only queen of men's health, Ali Gilbert. Ali Gilbert, welcome to the Coach Catalyst podcast.
Thank you for having me. I would say long time no see, even though it feels like forever. It was just last week.
I know. We just saw you at the Real Coaches Summit 2023 in Vegas, which was awesome. Kind of a shout out to Aram for putting on a great event there. And that's really where we got connected. And I was like, hey, you got a cool story. You've built a pretty cool brand. And so let's get you on the podcast and let's talk about it a little bit. So the first question, you are known for being like the queen of men's health, which is kind of like this oxymoron, right? Most people think all right, women are going to help women, men are going to help men, but you've kind of decided to flip that. And so was that like a conscious decision, or did it just kind of fall into your lap where you had a bunch of male clients, so you went deep down that rabbit hole, or how did that all start?
Kind of all the above. So the short story of that is I'm one of the OGs who graduated with an exercise science degree, and everybody who majors in that wants to train athletes.
Yep.
So obviously we all know how saturated that market is, but also it's you really have to kind of niche. And I was like, cool. I also need to pay the bills, and strength and conditioning, at least back then, paid nothing.
Right.
You paid to be in your job.
Yep.
So the town that I had grown up in Greenwich, Connecticut, had 9 golf clubs, very wealthy town. And I was working in a gym there, and I just started training a bunch of guys who played golf. And I was like, golf is a sport. These are athletes who can afford to train, and they're very type A, which I was very drawn to. I was like, let me see if I can specialize in golf fitness. And that was actually a thing, as the Titleist Performance Institute was born around 2006, 2004, I think. And so in 2008, I was like, I'm going to become a golf fitness professional. And I went through every single one of their certifications, literally went all in on it, played soccer in college. So I was like, I'm going to play golf. So I bartered with every golf pro in town, trained them, got lessons, learned the sport. If you've ever played golf, and you've played a sport before, it is so frustrating when you first learn. To be able to go kick this ball that comes at me, a million miles an hour, no problem. But this white little thing that does not move and not being able to hit that, really annoying. So then I basically positioned myself as a golf fitness specialist. And so got all the guys who played golf in that surrounding area, and it was all men. And soon you realize that men don't go to the doctor. They take all these random supplements. And I was like, well, I'm learning about guys, and I think I should learn more. And I was at the time learning a lot about hormones in general. And one of my business coaches, Tom Plummer at the time, said, listen, you have like a thing with the men's hormone stuff. Don't post about women's stuff anymore. Just post about men's hormone stuff. And I was like, all right. And this is like 2011, 2012. And ever since then, I kind of ran with it. So I started diving into everything I could learn about men's hormones. I attended medical conferences. I applied to speak at one and spoke at one, and it was terrifying, but it was really fun. I basically created a network of practitioners in the men's health world that I trust. I went through the process of getting labs done and understanding what they do, and just basically have since positioned the marketing to the male demographic and working with guys. And as a female, it's actually been really fun. And so that's kind of how that was born. I said that was a short story, but it was so long.
No, so I mean, it's a unique perspective, right? Like there's not a lot of females that are really branding themselves as men's health experts. And so that allows you to kind of create your own island in a way, which is awesome. And so kind of going back to even like, you got out of school, right? So let's kind of rewind even further. So you got out of school. Was it just like, I went to school, you were an athlete in school, I love sports, I love helping people, I want to work with people, maybe athletes. And was it just like go work at a local gym? Or was this like, I mean, was this?
Oh, no. So I graduated from Springfield College in 2003, which
birthplace of basketball.
Forever. What's that?
Birthplace of basketball.
Yes, it is. And literally I only applied and went there because I was like, at the time, they were the only school that had like exercise science based degrees and multiples of them. So basically, if you went to Springfield, you played a sport. It wasn't like where you're from. Where are you from? It's like, oh, what sport do you play? And you could kind of tell that based on how people looked because they looked like their sport. So majoring in exercise science, my original plan was exercise physiology because for some reason I really liked the clinical stuff. And I was a cyclist. I was a competitive cyclist in high school, which I don't think a lot of people know about me, but I had to give that up before going to college because you can't really do cycling and soccer. It's opposing sports. So freshman year, I actually played softball and soccer at Springfield. And I was like, exercise science is really fun, but I really like the strength and conditioning stuff a lot better. Because you're in, our lab class was like breaking down the bench press and how would you teach that to somebody? And I was like, this is school. And mind you, I went to an all girls school for 11 years. So I'm now in like heaven because I'm with a bunch of athletes who are guys and stuff like that. And literally, I tell this story all the time. I think it was freshman year exercise phys lab, where our professor was like, all right, we're going to test body comp on each other. So women come in sports bras tomorrow, guys, be ready to take your shirts off. And I was like, there's going to be half naked guys in my class. It was so weird. And I just fell in love with everything about what I was learning. I volunteered to do the VO2 max test. It was really obscene, but it was really fun. So I was like, this is something I can make a career out of. And I was like, all right, instead of working with a bunch of Olympic cyclists, I really like the strength conditioning stuff. I was very drawn to lifting heavy stuff. We had to lift for soccer. And so I kind of just fell in love with all of that. And I was like, oh, wow, we can get paid for this. And my senior internship at the University of Hartford taught me a lot about what the strength conditioning world was like. And I thought I wanted to go collegiate strength conditioning, but soon realized that's probably not for me. And at that time, Velocity Sports Performance was exploding.
Yep.
So there was one that opened in Connecticut, and I worked with Steve Plisk, who was at Yale forever. And I'm dating myself, but this is like 2004, right out of school. And Lauren Seagrave was like the main teacher of a lot of the speed and agility stuff. And I think he was a part of the company. So I was there for about a year, and then the franchise folded, and I was like, all right, well, what am I going to do now? So they needed trainers at some of the local commercial gyms, which I think was World Gym back in the day. And then that got bought out by Fitness Edge, which is now known as the Edge. And I was there for a good 5 or 6 years and was kind of trying to find my way because you're working with a lot of people who are very well off. It's very lucrative to work as a trainer. I had like the 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. shift, and I mean, you can't complain about that. And I still came back, trained more people. This is back in the day when we all trained like 12 people a day. And I don't think people do that much anymore.
Was this all like one-on-one at the time? Were you just doing one-on-one training and then you were on the floor floating around, talking to people, that kind of stuff?
Oh yeah. It was very tiring, but when you're young, you can do that. So,
right.
You know, and the best thing about it is, and I still encourage coaches to this day, like go to a commercial gym and work so you can get in front of as many different personalities, orthopedic issues, weird shit. Like people have weird things going on and you have to learn how to work around that. Because if you go straight to online and you're presented with somebody who, you know, broke a toenail lifting a piano or something and they have something weird, like you have to understand how to work around that. So it teaches you a lot about MacGyvering things and kind of changing things up. But you learn a lot about who you want to deal with and who you don't want to deal with. And I got along very easily with guys. I think just because naturally being an athlete and a tomboy, I was like, all right, cool. These are my people. And they came in, they knew what they want. These are like, you know, the Wall Street, like type A. I got to get my workout in before the 6 a.m. train to New York City. So they knew what they want. They got the work done. And I respected that as an athlete. I was not a social trainer so much as, you know, chatting the entire hour. I really hated that. So they didn't really even have semi-private wasn't even a thing then. I don't think that was born really until like 13 or since CrossFit really became popular, which was around 2009, I think.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
My favorite thing about Coach Catalyst.
One of the things I love most about Coach Catalyst.
There are lots of things I love about Coach Catalyst.
And the reason why I love Coach Catalyst is that
the accountability off the back of that
is simplicity.
The support is amazing.
It allows me to give so much of me to my clients.
It's the drip feeding of content.
I can schedule lessons for my clients in advance.
Game changer for freeing up time.
It gives me my time back.
It's so simple and so easy.
Hi, I'm Kane, the founder of Coach Catalyst, the number one accountability and communication software on the market today. We help coaches just like you keep their clients accountable and scale their business beyond what they've ever been able to do before. So if that sounds like something you want, let's take a look at how we can help. So Coach Catalyst was built on the 4 C's of coaching. Those are content, communication, community, and consistency. So for content, you need to go beyond just workouts and deliver the whole experience for the client so they get the results they deserve. For communication, you need to own your communication. If you don't own the communication, you don't own the client. So make sure you stop texting clients and use a centralized platform. For communities, get off of Facebook groups and take ownership over your social group with Coach Catalyst communities. And for consistency, the foundation of all results for clients, we took the best-selling book Atomic Habits and built all of these fundamentals right within our app that's going to guarantee to get your clients the best results possible. If you want to start using the 4 C's with your clients, content, connection, community, and consistency, make sure you run over to Coach Catalyst and start a free trial today.
I mean, the other thing about working in a big box gym is it teaches you how to sell a little bit, how to sell yourself, how to interact with people, how to engage with people in meaningful ways. Because you're not going to make it just floating on the floor and picking up towels and that kind of stuff. Like you have to actively get clients.
Totally. Oh my God. Like we had this thing where you had like the first 2 sessions with somebody when they joined were free. I think a lot of gyms did this. Yep. And you sit down and you get to know them and all of that. And at the end of that session, I had to like bring them up to the front desk and introduce them to the salesperson. And that was like terrifying as a young coach. Cause like if they didn't want to go or if you couldn't like bait them, it just made you feel horrible. And so you had to basically like take them around the gym. So where you ended, everyone ended with abs. That was like the thing. You end with your ab stuff. And so the ab area was near the front desk. And so the sales guys would like stare you down at the end of your session. So you could be like, all right, so let me have you come talk to Chris. And if you want to continue working together, blah, 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 and hand it off. It was like the handoff. And there was just very calculated moves you had to make. And all the trainers, you know, were positioned against each other for who made the most sales and stuff like that. And we would get rewarded for that, which, I understand why they did what they did, but had I not had that experience, I really wouldn't understand how to sell somebody within that session, because you have to sell results, which is impossible to really sell in one session. So what did we do? We made sure people felt the workout, because that's how people equated it as being effective. Oh, let me just beat the shit out of you so that at the end of the session, you're like, yes, take me.
Right.
Take my money. So you're totally right. That whole sales process, like I'm sure it's a lot different, but yeah, it definitely teaches you like what to say, what not to say.
Did you thrive in that environment, or was that like, were you way outside of your comfort zone?
I love that. Not the sales part so much, but I love the commercial gym, because I love being around people. My energy feeds off other people. It's why I love public speaking so much. And I hate doing like Zoom sessions. Like when you speak to a Zoom, like in COVID, you have no audience, nobody, you have no idea how your jokes are going over. You have no idea what's going on. So I love the gym environment so much that actually, like when I left the commercial gym environment, because I got poached by a company that did like higher end one-on-one training and PT, they had me do in-home training for like a year. I hated that. You're by yourself all day. Yeah. This is how old I am. We had a BlackBerry that was like this big. That was like, for the company emails, to understand did somebody cancel, blah, blah, blah. And you're going from house to house and you're just not around anybody. You have to like find a place to go to the bathroom. You've got to grab a drink. If there's traffic, it's stressful as hell because you could miss a session or be late, and it's really not your fault because you get booked back to back to back. So I really did not love that. I love being around people. I don't do any in-person coaching now, and I do miss it sometimes because of that coaching environment. So that is one part I would say is tough with remote coaching, but I definitely keep myself occupied with doing like podcasts and doing weekly Zooms with my group and stuff like that. But yeah, I did love that environment for sure.
So why, you probably didn't know this about yourself maybe at the time. Was this the pay better? And it's like, okay, cool, I'm ready to move on to the next thing. Why take that job with the new company, which is a completely different realm than stay at the commercial gym?
So the commercial gym, I had maxed out my hourly. I was number 2 in the entire company. So this was across 7 clubs at the time. I was being paid the highest. I think it was like $37 or $32, some weird number, of all the trade. Like I literally had everything I could get. And so the only way to make more money was to work more hours.
Right.
So I was like, cool. And they approached me, and they were a cash-based physical therapy place that fed into high-end training. So the pay was better, but also the growth. So when I went with them, we did the in-home thing for an hour because that's all they had. And then they opened a brick and mortar. And so I ran the training in the brick and mortar and started a golf performance program that actually did extremely well. And it did 6 figures right away. And I became the director of golf performance. I hired coaches under me. And that was awesome for, I don't even remember when I left. I think that was 8, 9, 10 years. I can't remember. I'm so old now. Like I'm only 41, but still. And then, you max your growth with that. Yeah. And that was when I was first starting to speak at NSCA events and perform better, and where, you're limited by somebody else's financial resources, but also no one's going to care as much about you or your own business as you. Right. So no matter who wanted me to speak where, no matter what opportunities I was given, it still was for me, not the company, which I completely understand. So there came to a point where I could either buy in for partnership or break away and do my own thing. And that's what I chose to do. And then I was on my own for a little bit. And then I was actually acquired by another private gym that opened. I did not want to work for them, but they basically offered everything I asked for. It's like a musician giving a rider that is just ridiculous, like with the blue M&Ms and stuff. I was like, all right, I want 12 weeks vacation. I want to be paid this, that. And they said yes. And I was like, fine, now I have to do it. But a learning experience. I was around people again. I had a team of trainers, and, that was great, except that gym, the owners did some bad things. And so that folded. So then at that point I was like, you know what, I'm just going to pursue stuff on my own and see where it goes. And then I was in person and then online up until COVID. And that just made an easy decision for me because I was literally running all over the place. I trained at 2 different gyms in Greenwich, one in Westchester, New York. And then I was doing all my online stuff. And I was like, something's got to give because my bandwidth was fading. And so then we moved to Florida and everybody's online. And here we are now. My business is growing and I have been connected with you guys and have had some solid people in my life to help me with my growth because I can't do it by myself.
So that's interesting. So, I mean, you were kind of doing both at one time. You were doing the in-person, so still training people, a couple different gyms, and you were building the online. Were you kind of doing it strategically in a way like, hey, eventually I want to move into this online space fully? Or was it like, hey, I just want I know that I can only train so many people in person. So there's going to be a cap, right? I can only work so many hours. Where online kind of has this, depending on how you structure it, right? It has almost like an unlimited, as a higher ceiling, I should say. It's not unlimited, but it is a higher ceiling. So was that strategic? Was that calculated?
No. No. It kind of morphed into that naturally. So I knew I enjoyed the online stuff, but honestly, I only started that because there was a demand for it. And that was in 2016. People were like, hey, can I work with you? I live wherever. And that's part of when you position yourself more as a specialist, you're a lot harder to find. So if you train everybody, it's easy to find generalist trainers. But because I was like the men's health / golf fitness person, people are like, do you do online coaching? And I'm like, I don't even know how, I don't know what, like, so I literally scrambled, got coaching software. I think I was using like spreadsheets at the time, like we all were, stuff like that. And then kind of just started doing it with no system or any like process whatsoever. And so then I quickly had to create one. And then the more growth that I experienced, then the more streamlined I had to make the systems. And now looking into bringing on more staff, I have a chief of staff, all the people that come with a company. It's terrifying, but it's also exciting because I'm like, oh, okay, so this could actually be like really explosive. Right. And I've created an event as well, a men's health event, which is really what I love. And it goes back to being around people because I love to share people. I love introducing relationships, making connections, similar to what Justin did with you guys and I, like all of that type of stuff. But I also want to have a good time with people. And that sounds wrong, but it's more like, even with my event, I didn't go into it having a marketing strategy or wanting to make money. I was just like, hey, I want these guys to learn the truth about stuff. And I want everyone to have a good time, which is not great for business all the time. So you need people to steer you in the right direction to monetize what you're actually doing.
Right.
As a gym owner, Coach Catalyst is the key to having low turnover. For several years, I struggled and spent 10 to 20 hours a week communicating with clients via phone calls, Facebook Messenger, email, and text messages. I had tried everything to make my life more efficient. I was at my wit's end. And then I found Coach Catalyst. Since starting the software, I have found a life again, and my clients are thanking me for being so involved in their fitness life. I've cut my daily commitment to interacting with over 300 clients to under 15 minutes a day and have streamlined my 6-week challenges. I couldn't recommend it more. I just don't know if I would even be here today if it wasn't for Coach Catalyst. If you don't have an account already, you're missing out and not helping the people you could be.
So how are people finding you? Were you pretty heavy on social media? Was it from your speaking engagements at different places? Like, how are people finding out about what you were doing?
It was social media. So Facebook was before Instagram really exploded. Yeah. It was not MySpace because I don't think anyone did like promotion on MySpace, at least for coaching. So yeah, like in 2010, 11, I think, Facebook really, really exploded. And then in the golf fitness community, word spreads really fast because it's a very small, close-knit community. And I think what I try to encourage other coaches to do, which I did, I never went on vacation ever. I started going to NSCA national conferences in 2004, like literally out of college, where I would like beg my mom, can you help me financially? All my paid time off because of where I was working, they gave that.
Yep.
Went to going to seminars. Any money I had was right back into education, stuff like that. So I was constantly going the live event, continuing ed route for a really long time and just building relationships. Because when I was 23, 25-ish, I was like, wow, NSCA stage, I want to be on that stage before I'm 30. And I did right at 28 or 29. And I was like,
that's awesome.
Cool. Like I like that stuff. So I wanted to keep building on that. And I think nowadays it's so easily accessible with information that people don't have to leave their house, which I understand is very convenient. But as we saw last week, like had I not spoken at that event, I wouldn't have met you guys. And there's a lot of big things coming from our connection. Like you just don't get that over the internet because you just don't have that natural like energy with people or spend that time that you do. So live events are still so important. And now there's so many of them. Like I feel like my entire year is booked out and it's like I'm out of year already. But if you create a calendar of like, all right, what can I go to that will help my business grow the most at this point now? So for me back then, it was obviously training events and some business events. And that is what is going to get me to where I am now. Nowadays, I do more paid mentoring and consulting. So who can help me get to where I want to next if I can pay them for what they provide? And a lot of that is going to be medical mentorship to understand a lot of what my guys do, as well as business and stuff like that. So I tell people create a hierarchy. Like there's going to be certifications and stuff that are fun to do, like Strong First I did because that was fun. But I waited years until I was like, okay, now I can pay for this, train for it because it'll provide me personally something. I don't do very high technical proficient kettlebell lifts with a lot of clients. Like that was just for me. So it had its place. So back to like creating that hierarchy, it's like, all right, what will benefit you right now? And then budget yourself for that because everyone wants to go to every event, but obviously not everyone can afford to go to every event. So it's positioning what's going to benefit you the most and where do you want to go? So maybe there's an event in like, the middle of North Dakota, probably not like the best city to go to, but you know what? If it's something that's going to benefit you the next week, get your ass over there.
Right. And it changes, right? Like early on in your career, the events that you're going to are probably a little different than later on in your career. Because early on, it's like more about learning the craft and getting really good at the craft. And then if you want to be in this game for, the next decade or a couple decades, like now we have to learn the business side of things and make sure that we're building a career that allows us to continue. Because one kind of thing about our industry, right, is like people just aren't in it very long. Like they're in it for 6 months, they're in it for a year, and they're out and they're moving on to something else, which is really disappointing because we're probably missing a bunch of could have been really great coaches that could have impacted a lot of lives, and they just couldn't make it work, so they move on, and which is a big challenge in this industry.
Yeah, it's a shame because I think a big part of that too with COVID, a lot of coaches saw how easy it was to capitalize on online, but they didn't learn the business side. And that's a big part of it. And there were a lot of coaches that contacted me when everything shut down. How do I start online coaching? And I'm like, oh my God, like this is like more than just like a DM conversation because it starts with building organic growth with your audience on social by providing trust. So, you can't just like get software and go online. You can, but it's a whole different ball game. We, like you said, have had to learn that business side, are still learning that business side. And it seems overwhelming at times. And I think that's where people are almost at the point where they want to quit. And then if you just push through, like I'm going through it now, it's a major transition of growth for my business that is scary. It's uncomfortable, some days I feel defeated. Some days I feel like I'm ahead, but I'm always feeling like I'm behind. And I think entrepreneurship is part of that. Because if you feel like you're ahead the majority of the time, you're probably doing something wrong. Just kind of like if you're the smartest person in the room, you don't really want to be in that room anymore. So it's consistently learning, and there's no end to developing your craft, but there can be expansion on that as to what direction you want to go with it. So like for me, kettlebells are fun. I did not have a lot of golfers doing things more than really kettlebell swings. Cool. So who is your niche? Finding your demographic. I think finding what like demographic relates the best to your voice and who people like working with. Because this can be very hard for a lot of coaches. I don't know what my demographic is. I don't know who I want to work with. And so I always tell them, pick like your top 3 clients right now who you enjoy working with the most. Why? What is it about them? Are they female? Are they male? Like, are they athletes? Are they moms? Are they business guys? Like, what is it about them that attracts you to wanting the best for them and that gets you excited at working with them? And then focus on that and try to narrow it down from there. So you never know where it will lead you. If you told me when I was 23 that I would get into golf fitness and end up working with guys, like I'd be like, yeah, that makes no sense. Who knew? You never know.
So for the coach that eventually wants to go online and they maybe see that as the end result, do you still suggest, hey, spend a few years of just like in person, getting your hands dirty and working with people? Or do you think it's possible for that coach to go right online at, let's call it 22, right out of school?
I would say definitely work in person, because it's difficult, I think, to have an understanding of how the body works if you've never, and this will sound bad, but like put your hands on somebody. So getting people to be in a certain position, understanding what you can fix like instantaneously, developing your cues that work and don't work. It's way harder to explain this shit over the internet. Like think about teaching somebody a Turkish getup over Zoom. Like, oh my God. Where if I'm in person with you, it's going to take a lot quicker. So being able to explain it to somebody in person will refine your ability to articulate it in a way they understand online. So I think it benefits. It's similar to like if you had a mechanic consult with you over Zoom, but he's never worked on a car. I'm not sure the trust is going to be the same. And he may know a lot about what he's talking about, but still, if you've never seen the inside of my car or seen how it works, I'm not sure I would trust you with it. So it can seem like it's this tumultuous effort, but when you're 22 years old, you're going to make some good money spending that time getting to know who you like working with. And then it'll be a lot easier. And then you can actually have social proof and experience and say, I worked with people in person for X number of years. Like I personally, I think 18 or 19 years working with people in person. And it provides you a background that not a lot of people have these days. So,
So, I mean, you spent a lot of time hands-on in the trenches working with people, and now you're completely online, right? That's a complete change in how you operate from a coaching standpoint, from a business standpoint. Like you're not looking people face to face 3 times a week and being able to like make those cues right on that, or change an exercise because they come in and they maybe were golfing too much over the weekend and so they're really sore, and you can just make all those adjustments right on the fly. Right? Like how do you translate great coaching, in-person coaching, to great coaching in the online world?
I like that question. And the funny thing is, I've always said, but since I've transitioned online, I feel people get better results through online coaching than they have in person. And I say that carefully because it can be interpreted many ways, but let's say the majority of Earth wants aesthetics and they want to look a certain way. If you and I are training in person, you get me, 3 hours a week or whatever. We literally are focusing on like your proficiency in the lifts and making sure that you're doing what I need you to do from a training standpoint. We're not chit-chatting. I'm making sure that you're like borderline failure and pushing yourself to a point that is going to be effective without injury. Yep. That's actually hard to teach online, is the intensity of training. And I can talk about that after. But that's really the only variable that we can control in that hour, if it's even an hour, 45 to an hour. When I have somebody online, I write their program, but I also monitor their nutrition. I monitor their sleep. I monitor their stress. I monitor biometrics where maybe they're sharing with me their blood pressure, their HRV, their resting heart rate. I'm understanding the transitions they go through in life, work, all this stuff, where I have a better grasp on multiple variables that I have control over. This is why I don't do nutrition only, because it only is part of the puzzle. I like to match the training to the nutrition. I like to understand everything about somebody. You can't really do that in one training session unless someone's doing nutrition coaching outside of that. But then again, it's different, So people with the accountability of knowing I'm watching stuff all the time and knowing that they have to answer to me, the one part, like I said earlier, is the intensity of training, or the knowing how to train hard. That's very tough to teach over the internet. And I'm retroactively going back and watching their training videos and thinking, okay, are the reps slowing down at the end of the set? Do they look like they're straining? Does their form break down? Are they making really fucked up faces? Like, what is going on in their training videos? Whereas I can't do that in real time, but at least now they've got some feedback. And like, for example, one of the bigger things I shared last week with the weekly group Zooms was a few people were recording. I noticed in their training, they're recording their warm-up sets as a work set, because like their front squat would be like 135 and then the top set would be like 185. And I'm like, what's going on here? Like, why is there this massive jump? And they're like, oh, that was warm-up. And I said, okay, I've got to like clarify that if you're warming up, that does not count as one of your 4 by 8 to 10. So that things like that were my fault for assuming people knew to do that. Right. You have to clarify stuff, because if you're just warming up, then we're getting one good work set. If you're taking 3 sets to warm up, which most people take before they start their actual work sets, stuff like that. Tempo, if you're doing any type of eccentric, like, stuff like that, you just really can't do in real time. And I would say that would be the one downside to the training side of online coaching. Other than that, I mean, there's just so much on the positive that I like.
Right. You're able to look at the entire individual and every facet of their life, and not just like the training when you're in person. Right. Which like you said, you would almost need another session outside of those in-person training sessions in order to kind of cover a lot of that. And so now coming back to like structure. So how do you structure it so that you can give all of this feedback and not have it like completely consume your life, right? You talked about, you have like weekly calls. Is that kind of like all your clients jump on and you're just kind of like talking about things you see during the week?
So I have a group coaching program and I do weekly Zooms, and that allows them to ask any questions that they have. And I invite my one-on-one clients to join that as well. Outside of that, my one-on-one clients get their own Zoom each month. And so this provides, and they can email me or message me on the app and stuff, however often they want. But that provides them the ability to get any feedback that they may need then or whatever. And then going through like a topic each week usually helps from the educational standpoint of how to navigate your nutrition. What am I looking for? What do I want out of you guys? What do most people tend to not do so well at? How to train hard, or how do you know what weight to use? Like, I ask them, like, what do you guys struggle with the most? And these are the things that come up. And And then a lot of my clients are actually other coaches. So they like learning the why. They see this as kind of a mentorship / have their own coach to work with. So then I provide them why I do what I do and how I lay stuff out in the way that I do. And they seem to enjoy it. So, and it provides that community aspect too, because we have a Facebook group too.
Right.
As a coach that runs challenges, I needed my life back. I had stuff all over the place. A Facebook group for community interaction, Google Sheets for check-ins and measurements, and was drowning in email communication. As my challenges grew past just a handful of people, I started to notice clients were falling through the cracks. I began researching virtual assistants because I just couldn't manage it all. And truthfully, the client experience was going down the drain. Luckily, a friend recommended Coach Catalyst and just told me to trust her. I'm sure glad I did. Now I can run my challenges with 2 or 200 clients with just a few clicks. The lessons get delivered on the right days, the accountability happens automatically, and most importantly, the communication is all in one spot. I even created 2 new challenges from the Coach Catalyst library. Best part, didn't have to change a thing. I used to spend 15 minutes just trying to log into all the apps I needed. Now I log in and my dashboard tells me who needs a shout out and who needs a kick in the butt in about 15 seconds. I feel like a huge weight is lifted off of my shoulders. I can finally spend my time coaching again instead of worrying about all the admin work. Do your brain a favor and get Coach Catalyst.
So you have kind of the high model, or we call it high ticket model or whatever, of one-on-one direct access to you. You're writing all of their programs, kind of customizing everything, probably looking at everything, blood work and sleep and all the recovery metrics and that. And then your group stuff, is that just kind of like, here's the program for the group, and then we're jumping on weekly calls, or are you still kind of customizing for each person in the group format?
So for the group, they get their initial nutrition appraisal as far as, they log for a few days.
Yep.
And this is everybody, log for a few days. And then I want to see where you're at, because if you're under protein, like most people, I have to determine where to start you. They get an initial calorie target, macro, stuff like that. And then the education in the group allows them to adjust it based on what they're going through. For my one-on-one clients, I handle all of that. I'll be in there every day, looking at what they're doing and tweaking as I see fit, especially by phase of training. For the group, it's not the same program for everybody. So they choose when they come in, hypertrophy. I'm training at a commercial gym. I'm training at home. So we have like dumbbell programs. We've got commercial gym programs, stuff like that. And then they ask questions and upload video in the group. And that's where that takes place. But yeah, with my one-on-one group, it's a lot. I do a very lengthy intake of understanding everything about them, and then where do they want to be. So the majority of my people are lower body fat, in a sense where it's like 20% or less. So it's not inherently more obese men. It's guys who probably came from a high intensity training background, not eating enough, and they're trying to get leaner. They just don't do it the right way. A lot of high performers, stuff like that. And I also facilitate their relationship with a medical practitioner, because guys don't go to the doctor. They don't want to deal with that. So I will direct them towards somebody appropriate for them, manage that relationship, jump in if I have to, but at least I know they're getting what they need and there's not going to be any drama surrounding that.
So how many one-on-one clients do you feel like you can carry at one time? Do you kind of have a cap of like, I can only take 10, I can only take 20? What's your number?
I think, like, personally, I don't like to go higher than 30. I think that's pretty much like the consensus for a lot of coaches. That's max out.
Like, that's a lot of work. Like, I think a lot of people think about like online coaching as kind of being this like, hey, I'm just going to go, deliver this program, and like, I'm going to let people do their thing, and they're going to pay me monthly, and like, it's going to be good. And, I don't have to work as much.
Oh, you work 10 times harder. Like, yeah, let's make sure that is known, that if you decide you want to go online, it is not like when we were back in the day seeing people with their feet up on the beach in Bali.
Right.
That's not what I'm doing. I live in Florida and I'm pale. Like, this should tell you I do not lay by my pool all day. It is so much harder. And I think people don't understand what we do on the back end because they think that we're just like, oh, hey, nice job. Talk to you later, Trevor. And I go lying in the beach. It's literally like, what are the trends in your nutrition? All right, what did you eat this week that maybe because you said you're feeling X, that this is connecting to Y? Are you increasing your weights in your training program? What do I have up for you next phase? Because you just told me you're traveling for 2 weeks. What do I have to pivot and change in your program? And what videos have you uploaded that I have to provide feedback? So if you have 30 clients and all 30 actually do what you say, which not all 30 do, but let's pretend I have all 30 people who upload videos every workout. So that's 5 to 6 exercises times 2 videos per workout. Okay, so that's like 12 videos per workout per person. That's a lot of time and energy. And just, it's hilarious how quick time goes by when I'm either writing a program or like looking at someone's videos and I'm like, oh my God, that was 2 hours. Now, maybe my time efficiency sucks, but I think a lot of coaches will say 30 is a lot of clients. So bringing on coaching staff is going to help me with this because it's not fair to someone else for me to take on more than I can actually provide service-wise. So that's where I'm not saying I'm capped out, but I'm capped out now, but I have coaching now or coaches to disperse that too. I did not before. Because I was like, I don't need to scale. I can just do whatever I need to. Oh, no. If you want to grow, you have to learn how to become a leader and take staff on and manage people and all these things. So if you're a coach who just wants to train people and now you're thinking of getting into online training, just be careful what you wish for because it is a lot harder.
Hey, Trevor here. Sorry to interrupt this episode, but we decided to split our interview with Ali into 2 parts. So that concludes part 1, and you'll have to catch part 2 either coming out next week, or if you're listening to the recordings, flip over and get started on part 2. Have a great day.
Thanks so much for listening to another episode of the Coach Catalyst podcast. If you are a coach looking to do more for your clients than just workouts, give Coach Catalyst a test drive. Try it for 14 days. Jump on call with your personal strategy coach, Ashley, and see how easy technology can be, all for free. Tell them Trevor sent you. Until next time, keep changing lives.